everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here to talk about all of the books that I read in October. Now this will mainly be a Victober wrap-up, but I did finish one other book in the month of October, and that was that I finished listening to Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice by El Cosimano. This is book 4 in the Finlay Donovan series, which is absurd and delightful. And this book was no exception. Finlay and her family find themselves in Atlantic City for a number of circuitous reasons. And more plots are afoot or begin when they arrive, and there are several different mysteries that are trying to be tied up all at once, involving all of our favorite characters and some new ones, including a dachshund named Kevin Bacon. And it was delightful. I cannot wait to get to the 5th one. Yet again, she has left us on another incredible cliffhanger. So as soon as I finish my current audiobook, I will be listening to book number 5 and eagerly awaiting book 6, which is out in March, I think. Now into my Victober reading, and keeping with the audiobooks theme, the next book that I listened to was Hard Times by Charles Dickens, and I listened to the Audible production read by Bertie Carvel. And he did a wonderful job. I wasn't entirely sure, based on the 2 pieces of his work that I know, I wasn't entirely sure I could stand listening to him for an entire book, but he really did an incredible job. His voices were so distinct and really delightful. The book itself is rather hard to sum up. You are following the same characters. You get a glimpse of them initially when Mr. Gradgrind is running a school, and you see how that affects not only the students there, but his 2 children. And then suddenly we are shot forwards about 10 years in time, I think, to see his children as young people, all grown up, and what happens to them when they become adults and meet a variety of other characters also in town. It is, of course, a commentary on the modern world and the perils of not only modernization, but also industrialization. And you see that quite a bit here, and as a result, it is incredibly depressing. And given that teaching is becoming quite stressful, this also became incredibly stressful, because a lot of people say that it's a commentary on modern education, and I both see it and I also don't, and I think that's a very complicated conversation to be had. Overall, it will stick with me, I think. Not one of my favorites, but definitely hard-hitting. And that's really all I can say about it. My opinion is still being formed because it is so complex. Then finally, I began listening to The Prime Minister by Anthony Trollope, and this is book 5 in the Palliser series. So again, I can't say too much, but one of our main characters, who we've been following since Can You Forgive Her, becomes Prime Minister, and that forms a portion of the plot. But we also have some new characters come in, like the Wharton family and a certain Ferdinand Lopez. I have not finished it yet. Today is November 1st when I'm filming, and I am about 80% of the way through, but I'm still counting this as one of my prompts because one of our characters does go through a change in station. They become Prime Minister. That's a big deal. It changes a lot for him socially as well as politically and within his personal life and his family. I have to say, like all of the Anthony Trollope books I have read, I am really enjoying this one. His characters are wonderful. It is incredibly frustrating, but once again that shows that Trollope is doing his job correctly, because you are so frustrated with a lot of these characters a lot of the time. There is a fair amount of racism, anti-Semitism that is briefly mentioned. Again, I don't think we are supposed to agree with it, but I think that was a fact of life in the Victorian era. So as a modern reader, that is slightly uncomfortable, but also part and parcel of reading Victorian novels. Then I managed to read 3 whole physical books. The first of them was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. So I counted this for the historical prompt, because this does take place in the 1750s, I think. We all know the story of Treasure Island. It has become so a part of pop culture. We have Jim Hawkins setting off on an adventure on a crew with Captain Smollett and Long John Silver and our cast of characters, and adventure ensues. Being as familiar as I was with the plot, it was an enjoyable read. It did feel kind of predictable. I do also think that Muppet Treasure Island is a fairly accurate depiction of this novel, so once again proving that my love for the Muppets is in fact merited. There was a certain point where I felt like Stevenson was stretching the story a bit. And it's the point where Jim gets back on the ship and there's only one other sailor on the ship, and they end up sailing it all the way around the island while that sailor tells, to my mind, a long and pointless story. And I don't know what he was trying to accomplish with that. I don't know, was it meant to be character development? Because it didn't really get them anywhere. I don't know why he was trying to circumnavigate the island in the first place. I don't know what any of it was accomplishing, but apart from that, I did quite enjoy it, and I'm glad I read it. This edition also, the Puffin edition for children, also has fantastic information in the back for kids, like a file about the author and questions about, well, how was this book received when it was published in the 1800s? Information about pirates and how they really worked in the 18th century. A who's who, questions to think about, activities to extend your reading experience. This is amazing. As a teacher, this is an amazing edition, and I wish they would put out more books like this for kids, because I think they really need it, and it helps them engage with the story and really get more out of it. Then I tackled another pop culture heavyweight, and that was Dracula by Bram Stoker. Once again, I had never actually read this before, but I had picked up bits and pieces through other novels or bits of adaptations that I had seen or read by accident. So I kind of knew how this was going to go. I did not know the ending. I was unfamiliar with some of the characters who were introduced. So there were still really wonderful moments of intrigue and surprise. But there was that level of familiarity, which I think kind of helped, because I am a massive scaredy cat and I'm quite scared of blood. So that made it a lot more bearable for me, knowing what was coming, and it wasn't a complete surprise. I've heard the argument for a lot of people that the misogyny in this makes it an absolutely unbearable read. And I'm of two minds with that. I did spot some of the misogyny, and yes, it is incredibly annoying. But at the same time, I think Mina is kind of the antithesis of that, given how active she is in the attempts to foil Count Dracula. And towards the beginning, as I was seeing all of Harker's notes about, ooh, I must tell Mina this, ooh, I must get this for Mina, I didn't see that as, oh, it's so quaint that she's just sitting waiting at home for me, or, oh yes, I'll get her this recipe because she belongs in the kitchen. I didn't read it that way. I read it as, isn't it wonderful that he is thinking about her? He wants to help her understand what he has experienced on this trip and include her in that. I think a truly misogynistic husband wouldn't think about her at all, really, to be honest. So once again, I think we can chalk that up to, it was the Victorian era and an unfortunate reality of the Victorian era. Then the final physical book that I read was De Profundis and Other Writings by Oscar Wilde. And these are all some of his lesser known or possibly later published works. The main one is, of course, the essay De Profundis, which he wrote, I believe, in prison or during his exile. And it's his musings on that situation. But I really enjoyed all of these essays. The other ones that were included were The Soul of Man Under Socialism, The Decay of Lying, which was not at all what I thought it was going to be. That one I think was my least favorite, quite honestly. And then some short poems along with The Ballad of Reading Gaol. These were so moving, so profound, and for a man who claimed to be atheist or agnostic, had some truly profound musings on the nature of Christ that, quite frankly, a lot of Christians today don't recognize, with some really scholarly evidence to back them up. I was just raving to my friend as I was reading them. I read them on my e-reader as we were traveling into the city. I was raving to her about them, going, why can't people understand this today when Oscar Wilde did? So if you haven't read these, I highly encourage you to read them. So those are the books that I read in Victober. I am not counting The Doctor's Wife, even though I did start it, because it never really went anywhere. I think I'm going to DNF that one. It's hard to tell where it's going to go, apart from the obvious, having read Madame Bovary, which I know it is playing on. So I don't know. I might come back to it another year if I feel inspired, but I don't see myself coming back to it right now. So as predicted, I did not finish all of the books that I laid out for myself in my Victober TBR, but that just means I have more delightful Victorian books to look forward to. Let me know down below if you participated in Victober. Did you read anything that you absolutely loved or at least found really interesting? And until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.